I would like to introduce our program for today. He didn't want me to say too much about him, so I will respect his request. It's difficult for me to be a minimalist, but I guess I can accommodate it. So it's him standing over here. You want me to mention your name?
You can do that.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. And you might have guessed he might be, although he won't admit to it, he might be a musician, but we're not positive. So if you will, please, a good Tuesday Club, welcome to Alan Steiner.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I'm really excited to be here. I don't know if any of you remember about 2-3 years ago, or early in the pandemic. Actually, I'm counting on this group not remembering that I was actually on Zoom a couple of years ago. And it's so nice. I mean, Zoom's great. And you know, no offense to all you people joining here on Zoom. I'm grateful that you're here. It's great to have a live audience to talk to directly as well. So thank you. We are live, yes. Okay, so I'm here. I asked Bob not to tell you what I'm doing here. What is this? Anybody can tell me what this thing is? Okay, I heard something interesting. I'll get to that in a second. Okay, it's a bass. A lot of names, double bass, bass. Well, we'll talk about the names of this too. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to talk about my life as a professional musician. Some of the people I've met, some of the things that I've done, and hopefully I want to make it as a conversation. So really all the way through the program, if any of you have any questions, please ask me. I will make up an answer. Okay. All right. So this is a bass. It's a member of a family of instruments. What family is it? It's the strings. Amazingly, it has strings. Yes, you're correct. What are the other instruments in that family? Okay, so from the smallest, we have the violin. Then a little bigger is the viola, cello, and then the bass. So if I wanted to play on the bass, the sounds that the other instruments made, for instance, if I wanted to make a sound roughly of a violin, I'd have to reach way down here, but in the bass world, this is actually way up here. And it would sound something like this. So now, something like a violin. So the next largest instrument is the viola. So it's going to sound what? It's going to sound higher or lower? Thank you. Yes, lower. No, I don't look at my finger. Okay. So if you know, a lot of people don't know the viola because it looks like a little larger violin, and it's sort of tucked in the middle of the orchestra. And it's interesting with the viola players because they have a bit of a complex because they tend to play a lot of offbeats. You know, chuck, chuck. We're the they're the chuck, 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 chuck. So when they practice their scales, they don't play every note. They play every other note. And I'm going to get called on that one. Okay, so if I want to make a sound something like a viola, it's going to be like this. So that's something like the sound of a viola. Next largest instrument is the cello. And you sit to play the cello. And it's a little bigger. And it's going to sound something like this. So that's something like the sound of a cello. Now, the next biggest instrument, well, the biggest instrument and the lowest and the best is, of course, the bass, okay? And the bass is going to sound something like this. Actually, it'll sound a lot like this, okay? And can you, I've got a question, especially those here, can you feel the bass? Now, with all the carpeting, you don't get quite the same resonance, but that's part of the fun of playing. We feel what we're playing. The violins, they don't feel anything. We feel this. Now, the place of the bass in the orchestra is the foundation. We are literally the bottom. We hold the orchestra up. And you know, it's funny. I'm going to be talking. It's funny. I always harken back to some of my youth orchestra days at school because there were some fun things that happened. But I was playing. I didn't tell you about myself. I'm a native of Toronto, Canada. I've been here since 1986. I am legal, and I am a dual citizen, I went to school in Philadelphia to the Curtis Institute of Music. Now, okay, I'm glad somebody knows. Okay, it's a small conservatory. A lot of people, unless you're sort of in the music know, you may not know the school. So let me ask you this: how many of you have ever heard of Juilliard? Everybody knows Juilliard. Okay, so I like to compare Curtis to Juilliard. It's a good school, Juilliard. Curtis, thank you very much. Curtis Institute of Music. Remember that. If you look across the orchestra downtown, you'll see half of their principal players went to Curtis. Okay, so a very fine school indeed, despite the fact that I graduated there. Okay, so Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. So, but when I was playing in the Canadian National Youth Orchestra, big orchestra, really good orchestra, and we were doing a Mahler symphony. And because of the size of the stage, they had to do an odd configuration of the orchestra. And so what they had is the basses. There were like 9 of us strung across the back of the orchestra. Instead of it to the side, we were across the back in a line. And then we had the brass here, the winds in front of us. And so we were kind of separated from the strings, which is not what we're normally doing. And we're playing this one movement of this Mahler symphony, and it's a sustained long note. Just, I don't know, it was like a low F or something, I don't remember. That's all it is. For like bar after bar after bar. Really soft. Couldn't play it in tune. Our coach was beside himself. He was so upset at us, we could not play it in tune. Finally, he decided he'll come up, he'll sit on the stage with one. So he sat next to me. It's sort of in the middle. And we played this piece again. When we got to this spot, same thing, it was out of tune. So he figured out what had happened. What he said is that because we were sitting behind the brass and sitting behind the winds, they had tuned just a little bit different. And so the guys on that side were tuning to these guys, the guys on this side were tuning to these guys, just an imperceptible amount, but it makes a difference. And so he said, okay, let's decide who we're going to tune to. So we decide, okay, we'll tune to the brass. So we tuned to the brass. We got the next rehearsal, we got to that spot. And it's silly. I still get chills. It's the single most exciting moment I have ever had playing my instrument. We got to that spot, played that same note that we've been playing all week, no louder, but the sound just went whoosh over the orchestra. Everybody stopped. The orchestra stopped. Where have you guys been all week? It was incredible because when it's in tune, there's just that's what makes a great orchestra. You know, there's good orchestras and there's great orchestras. And you just have that fine tuneness. And so the sound, you know, I guess I've never done this, but here, if I'm going to play, okay. So I'm playing it. How many of you played an instrument, by the way, of any kind? Okay, so some of you have played string instruments. Okay, so if I'm playing this note, I can play the same note here. We call it closing. Okay, so it's the same note because when I play it, I can play it here. When I play here, I can vibrate that I can't do on the open string. Okay, the little thing. But so if you listen to this, now I'm going to move my finger just a little bit. Oh, I'm going to play them together. So it sounds like basically one note. If I move just a little bit, you hear that that sound that you hear on a piano when it's out of tune because the unisons are a little out of tune. That's what you get. So it's as you get closer, and this is something I have to teach my students, is to listen. You think you're close. Now just give it a little nudge to get a little bit closer. So when we're all playing the same note together, that sound just gets bigger without having to make the sound. I'll get on with some more stuff. I should play a little something. So I'm going to play a little piece here. This is a piece of Baroque music. This is in the time of Bach, 1600s, 1700s. It's called a hornpipe. And you probably have all heard a hornpipe. By the way, if you're ever in doubt, you get these names. Now, this happens to be English, but very often you get these Italian names, things of especially in Baroque music. When in doubt, if you're not sure what it means, it's probably a dance. So just, oh yeah, that's a dance, So this is a hornpipe that you have probably heard if you've ever been to a wedding, from the water music, the Handel water music. Da 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 da. It's a popular recessional. Well, this is the same kind of rhythm. The Hornpipe by Galliard. Thanks. Okay, so we talked about, I talked about the different the instruments in the string section. I should tell you a story because this is coming back to the name of this instrument. Traveling's, I've got a couple of traveling stories. Traveling's always been an adventure with the bass. Especially now, I haven't had to go anywhere with it other than the car since 9/11, fortunately. And the stories are, it's a nightmare trying to travel with these things. But back in the day, when I was, the first time I flew with the bass, I had a bass that was a tiny bit smaller than this, but it was still a big bass. I was going to audition, I was going from Toronto to Philadelphia to audition for school. I was able to buy an economy seat at half price on most of the airlines, so it would take about a seat and a half. So I kind of squish to get it. And so I had my boarding pass and I get to the airport and I was flying on Allegheny Airlines. I don't know if any of you ever remember we used to call it Agony Airlines, and we had a little short hop and we had to go from Toronto to Erie and Erie to Philadelphia. I've only been sick twice on the plane and both times was coming into Erie, Pennsylvania. And so I get there and, it was a turboprop. So you didn't have the gangplank. You didn't have the walkway to the thing. You had to go down to the tarp, go to the stairs, and then you went back up, onto the plane. So I'm down. I'm starting to walk across the tarmac. The grounds guys are going, you can't take that on the plane. I have a boarding pass going on. And I just kept walking. I get to the stairs. I look up, and at the top of the stairs, I see in those days, there were stewardesses. There was a stewardess at the top of the stairs, and she's like, white as a sheet, like, you can't bring that up here. I said, I got a boarding pass. I'm coming up. And I start walking up the stairs with the bass. So I have to look over my left shoulder and I look up, and leaning out of the open window of the cockpit's the captain. And he's got this smirk on his face. And when you fly, the captain has the last word. If he says you don't get on, you don't get on. But I'm walking up the stairs. By the time I get to the top of the stairs, captain's out by the door, leaning there. He's got this great big smile on his face. The poor stewardess doesn't know what to do. And the captain looks at me and says, "Don't worry, I got this. I had to schlep one of these things around Europe with a friend of mine when we were kids. This is what you got to do." And he told me about seatbelt extensions and put in the bulkhead. And he gave me all the to-dos for this, so that subsequently when I flew, I always knew how to throw around the orders. But it was good. And people were very, very nice. And on the small planes, believe it or not, it was easier than on the big planes. Because on the small planes, if you remember, those armrests come up and down. The big planes have these big clunky consoles. You can't move. So I was able to fly. It was great. Another time when I had to fly a 747 across Canada. And I got on the plane, and I usually have to pre-board. So when I got on, there was nobody there. So I go way to the back of the plane, and I try and get my base onto the seat. The flight attendant comes over and he says, "This is silly. I got a better idea." He says, "Come on." And he grabs this end, I grab that end. We lift it up. By this time, the plane's full. We schlep this thing across the entire length of the 747 up to the front. We get to the front to the spiral staircase. He says, "Okay, we're going up." And we take the base and we wind the base up the spiral staircase to the first class lounge. When we get up there, and it's all white shag rug or whatever, and wall-to-wall carpeting, and these great big seats, a few empty seats big enough to accommodate this and a bunch of drunken businessmen. And they thought it was a hoot, so we go and we put this in the seat. And then I asked the attendant, "Well, can I sit here with it?" "No." And then there's this really nice cart filled with these beautiful pastries. "Can I have a pastry?" "No." So I went back to steerage, and my base went first class. And a couple of times we did that where it went first class. Okay. So that's, the adventures of traveling with the bass. Nice thing is when you play in an orchestra, then it's a breeze, because the basses we have these things they look and for all intents and purposes, they are coffins. We call them coffins. They're big hard cases, and at the end of the concert, put the bass in the case, close the case, lock it, say goodbye. The stage guys get it on the plane, get it to wherever you're going, and it's there for you when you get there. So in that score, it's a breeze. But when you got to travel by yourself, it's a bummer. Been using this thing. Got an idea what this is? It's a bow. So another story. I was traveling once, and the base was shipped, but I had my bows with me in a case, so I took them on the plane with me. So I get to security, and I'm walking in through security. "What's that?" "Oh, it's a bow. Can't take it on." "What do you mean you can't take it on?" "We're not allowed to take weapons on." "No." It was in it was a little case. I opened up, it's like a violin bow. "No, you can't take it on." And I was trying to convince this woman that no, this was like a violin bow. It almost became a weapon. I finally was I was finally able to convince her that, yeah, I can get on. So I did. But that's a bow. But then sometimes I take the bow and I put it down. Now I'm going to test your musical knowledge here. Sometimes I use these guys. And what are they? You guys really do have a pretty good musical knowledge, and especially you don't all play. Yes, they're fingers. All right. And we pluck the string. In fact, you see the jazz guy, doing that kind of stuff. All right. And, but you got to remember, I am a highly skilled, highly trained professional musician. And as such, we don't do anything in English. We have all these fancy words, more usually in Italian. It sounds very impressive, okay? So like doctors learning Latin. Do doctors learn Latin anymore? I don't even know. The word, well, do you know what the word is for plucking? Pizzicato. Okay, a man of knowledge over there. Good. Yes, it's pizzicato. So if I wanted to play something pizzicato. So that's pizzicato. Thank you. So remember, next time you're at a concert, you see somebody doing this. Guys doing pizzicato. So remember that you can impress. You can impress your significant other. How many of you remember Nat King Cole? Oh, yeah. Oh, everybody, sure. That's why I love these audiences. When I talk to the kids, they don't even know who Bullwinkle is. It drives me nuts. I love talking my contemporaries here. Nat King Cole. I want to play just a little piece that he made famous. Did you know that Nat King Cole was primarily, or Bob would know this. He was a pianist. That was his instrument. He came to the singing stuff later. Hard to imagine, but he was first and primarily a jazz pianist. So this is Nature Boy. Nature Boy. How many of you gone and seen an orchestra? Gone to an orchestra? Well, most of you have seen somewhere or another. You've seen an orchestra. You ever wondered when you look at the orchestra, are any of those guys actually looking at the conductor? Have you ever thought about that? Are any of the guys in the orchestra looking at the conductor? All right. And, well, the fact is, we're always looking. Now, I tell you, I've played with conductors where we try not to look at them because they're getting in the way. But really, we are always looking at the conductor. And we'll try something. What I want you to do is I'll take one of your hand, take your arm, extend it out in front of you, down below your eye level. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at your hand. Look down at your hand and look at your hand, okay? Can you see me doing this while you're looking at your hand? Peripheral vision, okay? We tell the kids it's the third eye. You are always, 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 always cognizant of what the conductor is doing. Now, there are times where we will look up. We know there's a major change in speed and tempo. So we're going to look up to see what he's going to do. Plus, some conductors, they just want to see your eyes. You know, they just want to see you looking at them. So, well, I know at a certain spot, conductor's going to turn around. He's going to stare at the bases. Well, I'm going to be looking. In fact, my very first at Curtis, my very, very first rehearsal, we used to get, I don't know if you would remember the name, Eugene Normandy was the longtime conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So he would come and he would conduct us at school. And we were told when we were doing Symphonie Fantastique by Berlioz. And our teacher told us at our section, he says, at this particular spot, Ormandy will turn. If the guy was a mensch, he wouldn't look. When it gets really, there's a difficult spot, you don't look at whoever's playing. Let them play. Don't make them extra nervous. Well, he said, Ormandy will turn around and he will stare at you at this spot. And if you aren't together with everybody else, he will get upset. And 15 years from now, when you audition for the Philadelphia Orchestra, he will remember that kid did not look at me at his first rehearsal at Curtis. So, and it happens to be one of these things where it's up, da da dee da dee da in the first movement, and we're playing these really difficult offbeats. Well, when we got to that spot, and there were only 4 of us, there was nowhere to hide. Sure enough, get to that spot, he turns around, he's staring at us. So, well, I'm looking. I put my hand here. I didn't move. I played the same 2 notes the whole time. I said, and I kept peripherally. I looked at the first player, who was our senior, and I made sure I stayed with him. And I played, and I stared at. So of course, Ormandy stops the orchestra, yells at the guy here, yells at the guy here for not watching him. I didn't play any of the notes, but I was watching them, and it was great. So, by the way, it did not help me when I auditioned for the Philadelphia Orchestra, but that's okay. So I would like I want to do a little experiment. Okay. And so I am going to need some help. Can I ask you to give me a hand? Okay. Do you mind walking, or taking the walk of shame around the back here? And would you like to help? Yeah, come on up. Have you ever played an instrument?
No.
Oh, great. Come up. Okay. That's absolutely perfect then. So here's what we're going to do. Because you'll see what the purpose is of this momentarily. So you wait for 1 second. What I want you to do is I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. You clap in time. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pretty good, pretty accurate. Yeah. Okay. Now, with conviction. Okay. So now I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Silent 2, 3, 4. Clap. So in other words, I'm going to count 4. You're going to count 4 in your head. You're going to clap. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, what do you think, guys? Yeah. Okay. So now when you get there, really, like you really mean it, even if it's totally wrong. Okay. Well, no, you know what? This is what we say. This is what we tell the kids. Look, if you're going to make a mistake, make a real mistake. Don't wimp out. Then you'll fix it next time. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He was moving so well. And then you jumped the gun, but it was very close. It was good. So now we're going to complicate the issue because we're going to have 2 people do the same thing. So now you get to come on up here. Okay, so let's, I guess you can just stand next to each other. And we're going to do the same thing. First, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, clap. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. That was really pretty good. All right. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, silent clap. Okay, but I'm going to ask you not to do this. I want it all in here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. You in the back, why didn't you play?
You said silence. This is silence.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, silent 2, 3, 4, clap. So the second measure, the second 4 are silent. Okay, so in other words, we want to see if you can count them in your head. Okay, so here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'll tell you what. They were wrong exactly together. So there's something to be said for that. Okay, so thank you very much. That's great. Okay, you can leave. Yes. So the point is now, sometimes what I'll do is I'll add a third and a fourth, and then what do we have? We have a quartet. And it's so important for a musician to be able to count here. I love going to, I don't know, you guys have grandchildren. You ever go to their concerts at school? Next time you go, if you go see the band or the orchestra, watch their feet. I love it. Watch the kids. They're all at different times. So they're all beating, but they're all beating at different times. And you know, but so you learn, you can't be doing this as a professional musician, and you can't be doing this. You have to learn. Hello, is that me? My heart. One thing I like to do, and I tell my students to do this too. When you get down to 10 seconds on the microwave, turn around and count down the last 10 seconds. See if you can get to the buzzer or the beep at the same time, because it's seconds. So it's a good way of practicing to see how close you get. But it's so important. So if you watch a string quartet, especially, there's where you really notice it. You can see a good string quartet. They're not just looking at the music. They're locked into each other. They're playing. So there's a leader, usually let's say the first violin or whoever happens to be playing the solo part at that point. They are just locked in and watching each other all the time. And so they have that internal clock going. And it's so important to have that. So you can't just rely on the conductor and the orchestra doing this. You have to be listening. You have to be able to feel what's happening. You know, it's I can say the orchestra is the ultimate team. We have to work together. I've done a couple of Rotary Club things, and the first time I was asked to do that, I'm thinking, well, what do I have to offer a bunch of businessmen? But then I realized, you know what? It's the team aspect of the music that is what's so valuable, and how you as an orchestra have to work together. Everybody has to be on the same page. And we're also, apart from maybe a surgeon, I don't know of any professions where you can make $1 million and bat 250. You got to be on all the time, and so there's a lot of, and that's the hardest part of playing an instrument. It's not this stuff. It's the mental aspect of playing an instrument and the focus and the concentration, and that's what always impresses me with the guys, especially the guys in the big orchestras. The focus that they have to be on all the time. And it's hard, and you have to do it. You know, and you can't just work, you can't play on automatic. You really have to be thinking about what you're doing. So that's, anyway, let's just give you an idea, a little bit of what it's like, how you have to work together. You know, it's one thing to do this, and it's another thing to do that at the same time with somebody else. So I'm going to play now a couple of little Yiddish pieces. My Yiddish isn't any good, so I won't even try and pronounce this one. Well, maybe I will. Maybe someone can help me here. It's Yisrael Voreta. I don't know if I pronounce it right. It's Israel in the Torah. It's a liturgical piece. And then followed by Oifen Pripachik. And I have a little story about the Oifen that I'll tell after. So we'll do the Yisrael Voreta first. little pieces. So I was doing this program at a nursing home, retirement center, rehab thing in Evanston a couple of years ago. And so I'm playing through the thing, and I was playing for the memory care unit. It's always a challenge. It's very rewarding, but it's really a challenge to play for these guys. And partway through the program, I'm looking around and I recognize there's probably a few Jewish people in the group. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to play these pieces. And I played the Oifen Pripachik. When I was done, I happened to look over to my right, and sitting in the wheelchair in the corner was this gentleman who had basically shown no interest or awareness the whole program. But I'm looking over and he's got tears running down his eyes. My dad used to sing that to me. Dad used to sing that to me. It made my day. It basically made my career. I said, this is why I play. This is why we play. This is the power that music has. And you see it with these people, how it jogs memories. And I've gotten that a lot whenever I've played this now. And to people where there is not, a Jewish face for miles around, but they seem to recognize this piece, or just the emotion of the piece. And it's absolutely fascinating to see. And it really, it validates what we do as musicians, is when we get a chance to do something like that. Now, I guess I should make sort of a equal time. And given the season, I'll do this little piece, I think you know. Okay. Written by a Jewish guy, Mel Torme. Okay. I'm thinking back with this is a story that I always like to tell. It's, again, back to my days at Curtis. In my first year at school, one of my buddies, in the first, he was only there for one term. He was a clarinet player. He was one of the very few at that time African-American faces at school. And generally in classical music, you just did not see African-Americans. And he was a real fine, as it was everybody at school, he was a real fine clarinetist. But his calling was alto sax jazz. The name is Alex Foster. I don't know. He played in some of the one of the a couple of big bands, and I think he was also a regular in one of the nighttime TV shows for a long time. Great stuff. But at that time, he was there studying clarinet. Then he figured out that no, that's not what he wants to be doing. But he had heard that there was going to be a jazz concert in town in Philly. A bunch of us should go. So a group of us got together. We went, and he brought along his horn because, it's some of the little clubs, it's kind of almost a tradition that at the end of the last set in the evening, if you brought your instrument, sometimes you can just get up there and you can jam with the greats. And so Alex brought his horn along. Figured maybe he can jam at the end of this thing. Well, we get down to the venue. It's the Spectrum in Philadelphia. There's 15,000 people. Probably not going to be jamming at the end of this concert. But this is some of the lineup for this concert that night. Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, Weather Report, Dizzy Gillespie, Maynard Ferguson, one band after the other. It was like a Hall of Fame thing. I looked it up once. I don't know if this ever happened outside of one of the big festivals, but it was just so cool. So you had all these great bands playing. So Danny was told, if you ever had a chance to meet Dizzy Gillespie, this is what you had to do. You had to go up to him and you had to say, knock, knock. Who's there? 2:30. Ooh, better see a dentist. Terrible joke. 2:30, better see a dentist. All right. So go ahead. I don't know. It's 3-4 years later. I'm playing in the Jerusalem Symphony. No, it wasn't. I'm saying I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm playing in the Quebec Symphony. I've just been everywhere. I'm playing in the Quebec Symphony, and we're doing Jazz Meets Symphony concert. Guess who's the artist? It's Dizzy Gillespie. So I have to do this. So before the concert, I knock on his door. Door opens. Yep, there's Dizzy Gillespie. Knock, knock. Who's there? 2:30. Better see a dentist. Who told you that? And he just starts to laugh. It was hysterical, but it was exactly what was supposed to happen. And he was so nice. And he did me a favor. He blew up his face for me, but this is one of the fun things about doing what we do. Now, if I had any of my colleagues here, they would just roll their eyes because they've all been through this stuff. They've all met these people. But that's one of the joys of doing what we do. We get to play with some of the greatest artists in the world. I played in Jerusalem. I played a concert with Danny Kaye. That was a gem. And you can actually see, not that program, but if you go and you look Danny Kaye, New York Philharmonic, you can see the program he used to always do. It was just hysterical. Danny Kaye, I played with Yo-Yo Ma, Chick Corea. So, there's the gamut, and, usually backing up. In fact, I used to play a lot when we used to play. They had the Festival Orchestra at Ravinia. We used to be up there on the stage there. I love those jobs because we got great parking. But we'd be on the stage, and my favorite was the swing concert. And so all we do is we just drone. We're just a backup orchestra. But I was always amazed at my colleagues in the band. These guys would nail these incredibly complex and difficult rhythms, and it was basically rehearsal concert. And I used to go, I said, how do you guys do that? Because we do it all the time, but it's absolutely amazing. And and the people we meet. I played out in Elgin's. If you ever get a chance to go out there, Elgin's got a really good orchestra. And I played a concert with them one time with Debbie Reynolds. And what they normally do is we play one read through with her conductor and her little combo that comes with, just to read through the charts. And then maybe she'll come in for the sound, just for a sound check at the end. She might sing a tune or two, because she's done this program a million times. Well, all I could think was Debbie Reynolds. I thought she was dead, and because I hadn't heard from her forever, and I don't know, So she comes in late in the rehearsal, little lady with the purple bouffant, whatever you called it, hair in a beehive, she was tiny, and she comes up with the Coke bottle glasses, and she looked like everybody's grandmother. And she comes in, she looks at the first cellist. You know who I am? I'm Princess Leia's mother. And we're going, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest embarrassment of all time. And she sang all right, she sang a little bit. Well, that was that. We played that night. It was the best concert ever played. She came in, she had completely transformed. She put on her costume. She lost the glasses, and she was hysterical. And she comes on the stage. She walks out there. Apparently, originally, she was a replacement for Doc Severinsen. So she walks out on the stage. She goes, "So how many of you thought you were coming to see Doc Severinsen?" So a few people put their hands up. Okay. Then she says, "How many of you thought I was dead?" The whole orchestra, we just all fell off our chairs, but we all thought the same thing. And she was so self-deprecating and fun. And she talked about all her life, which was a difficult one, and all her marriages and stuff like that. But it was so much fun. But the nice thing is that she appreciated the orchestra, and we weren't just there backing her up. We were an integral part of her performance. And she also knew that we were all dying to get pictures. So she volunteered. She said, "Look, I'll come downstairs to the orchestra room at the break. You guys can all have pictures." And we all got pictures with her. And so it was really nice. And we've gotten that a lot where, we have people, most of these guys, they appreciate what you're doing. Yo-Yo Ma, he is the real deal. This guy is what you see is what you get. And he makes you feel like you are the greatest orchestra ever to play this particular piece. And he's played with everybody. And he's just a gem. And most with very few exceptions, most of these guys are really, really nice. They're nice to musicians, and they appreciate what we're doing. And that says something. Okie doke. So I guess I should, I'm playing some music. I'm a classical musician. So I am going to play a little bit of Bach. All right. This is actually written for unaccompanied cellos from one of the Bach suites. It's a jig. Remember, when you don't know what it means, what is it? Probably. It's a dance. Yeah, okay. So it doesn't matter what kind of dance. It's a dance. All right. So this is a jig. Let's just jumping around here. I want to play. This is a piece I just started fooling around with, and it'll be sort of my version of this. I suddenly gotten this great love for Ennio Morricone. Is that a name that any of you recognize? Have you ever seen any of the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood? He wrote all the soundtracks, and he's just written all kinds of absolutely fabulous music for movies. And it's just his music is incredible. And I wasn't aware of it. There's another piece that I played, but I just started fooling around with this one. So I'm going to play it, a little arrangement. It's called Gabriel's Oboe. I should know the movie it's from, but I'm not even sure. It's Gabriel's Oboe, or in this case, Gabriel's Bass, by Ennio Morricone. Gabriel's. Now I'm going to tell you a story now. Now, I'm sorry, but it's very sad. It's very tragic. So you might want to take out your hankies. Yeah, and it's about a young maiden and a monster, and it's called The Maiden and the Monster. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a young maiden who lived in a small little cottage. Next to the small little cottage was a little garden with lots of pretty flowers. Now, down the road from the little cottage was a little town with lots of happy people. Down the road from the little town was a dark, mysterious cave. In that dark, mysterious cave was a dark, mysterious monster. One day, while a young maiden was out picking flowers in her garden, the monster came out of his cave. He went past the little town and came up to the little cottage. And he opened the little gate and went into the little garden where he saw the young maiden bending over, picking up flowers. Well, a monster crept up behind the young maiden and lightly tapped her on the shoulder. Well, the maiden turned around with a start, and when she saw the monster, she screamed. Well, nearby in the town, they heard her scream, and they came running to the rescue. But when they got to the little cottage and opened the little gate and went into the little garden. It was too late for the poor young maiden. Had eaten the monster. Maiden and the monster. Yes, now you may wipe your tears. I guess we only have a minute or two left, correct? So let me ask you this: do you have any questions for me? And I will gladly make up an answer.
Just a question on the price of a orchestra-worthy bass like you have. What would it be in dollars today?
Well, it's interesting with that, and this is with string players especially. It's sort of a catch-22. You need a fine instrument to compete, but you need that job in order to pay for those instruments. Let me put it to you. This one is underinsured. I've been told that I've got to get it checked. This particular instrument's probably in the six figures anyway. But you know, some of the, and it's not nearly as expensive. The basses do not compare to the price of violins. The violins, it's insane. They literally, they can be in the millions. So that's if you are insistent on getting like this, a fine old Italian instrument. But there are great modern instruments made, and it is incorrect to say they don't make them like they used to. They absolutely do. There are great makers of all the instruments. That's in the band too. There are great makers out there now. And sometimes, you know, it's a little time and, you know, to work the instrument in. The wood learns, but it is very expensive. It's an investment, but if you get a good instrument, it can be for a lifetime. The surprise for a lot of people is the cost of these guys. You know, I mean, this one is a good instrument. And I don't even know. It's a Canadian-made instrument, a bow. I actually had two of his bows stolen. But I think his bows now are something like $3,000 or $4,000. I had a bow that I got years ago. It was a light little skinny little bow, but I needed a second bow. But a really fine Italian maker. But someone had sat on it and broke it. So it had been repaired, but on a diagonal. So it could be repaired. And I used it. I played downtown. I played the ring, the entire ring using that bow. But when I went to sell it, you know, I paid about $800 for it. So I didn't know what to ask for, especially because it had been broken. So I had one of my colleagues who was interested in it. I said, well, you go find out how much it's worth and you pay. So he was told it would be like $2,000. So fine. But he was told had it been in mint condition, it would have been a $12,000 bow. So, you know, yeah. Question.
Yeah, we have more. We have a couple on Zoom. We've had 40 people on Zoom, but we have one from the audience here first.
I used to keep company with a violist, and she said that the best instruments in the world nowadays don't come from Eastern Europe or Western Europe, but from China. Would you agree with that?
I could not tell you, but I have my doubts. And they're certainly making tons and tons of instruments are coming there, and some really good, but some, like everything else, there's some good stuff and there's some trash. I don't know. I mean, you know, I had a friend of mine who we went to school together. We played in Quebec together, and actually just retired a few years ago after 30 years as concertmaster in Boston, Malcolm Lowe. He was looking at an instrument. He was trying out, we all sat down and listened to it. He was trying out a whole bunch of really fine, you know, six-figure, and this is, you know, 30, 40 years ago, six-figure violins to see, he wanted to change violins. After trying out all those instruments, he decided he preferred his Regina, Saskatchewan violin over those. And so he kept that, at least for a while. You know, so it's a matter, I think it's also sometimes taste. And don't assume that because something is a Stradivarius, it's a great fiddle. It was made by great makers, but they, like everybody else, some are better than others, but if you really do have that, all these little $250 school instruments all have Stradivarius inside. But if you have a real Stradivarius, you can retire even better than what you're doing now. Okay. Yes.
More from the Zoom group. More about the bow. There's just a comment. There's from Monica. There's an excellent documentary called The Bow Makers, made in 2019, about master bow makers. Fascinating film. A quick one from Linda, who's asking, what wood is used to fashion a base?
I'm terrible at this because I meant to look it up. I'm awful with that.
Okay, let me give you something that you might know more than on this. Have you ever broken a string in concert?
A string, no. But my first professional job, first time, I walk in, I'm playing in the middle. We were rehearsing, I think, for an opera or something like that. I hear pow, rattle, 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 rattle. So I'm looking around and I see everybody's looking at me. So what are you looking at me for? And they all look and they're pointing. The tail piece that here, the wire at the bottom snapped. And of course, when that happens, the strings just hang, everything falls to the floor. And it was so embarrassing, but what are you going to do? Bass strings rarely break.
Okay.
You may have noticed, if you see in the symphony, some of these guys have this little piece, this extension on their bass. If you look at it, it's what it is. It's an extended C string instead of EADG, it's a C string, so it goes down a little lower. For various reasons, I wasn't able to put one on this bass. And those have a tendency, because they're long and they have a much wider vibration. They can break once in a while. But I saw a concert. I've seen a couple times, but I saw one where I think it was Pinchas Zuckerman was playing some solos, and he broke a string.
Okay.
So he just said, "Excuse me," ran back, had the strings in the back, put them on, and that was it.
Okay. Couple more. Are there any solo jazz musicians that play bass?
Oh yeah. Oh, many.
Who might you think was one of the outstanding?
Well, I mean, Rufus Reed is one that I just happen to know. I tell you what, you want to hear. Here's a great one to look up. Esperanza Spalding.
I've got a couple of her songs.
And this woman,
young woman,
is a wonderful, wonderful singer and a great bass player. And I mean, to me, it's hard enough to sing, it's hard enough to play, but to do them both, and do them both really, really well. And she's one absolutely worth looking up. And yes.
Wait, let me give you one more, and then I'm going to turn it over. Yes, just want to finish the Zoom question. There was one last Zoom question. Have you heard the expression that the loudest sound of the bass is its absence? You cannot.
Somebody asked that last time. Yes, and that kind of comes back to, remember that story I told you about playing in the youth orchestra when we played that low note, and then when we got it in tune, suddenly everybody heard us because we weren't there, because we weren't clear enough. The bass is the foundation. The house isn't going to stand up for long without a good foundation. So you have, and this is what makes the Chicago Symphony. The Chicago Symphony has a fabulous bass section, and it's a fabulous orchestra. But if you have, it's what you need. So you need that foundation. So it is true, you've got to have that. So, and if it's not there, there's just something missing.
Yes. Are you affected very much by humidity, heat, and everything as you move from place to place with this instrument?
Me or the bass?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And, that's why we're constantly tuning, and literally, and it's even more so with something like the violin, literally, going from room A to room B, it can change the, because it's wood, it's alive, it's expanding and it's contracting. And,
Are the strings reacting as well?
No, that's not advantage of having steel strings. Many years ago, it was got strings, And there they would dry. You had to put mutton on or something. You had to keep them moist, and those would break. You don't get that as much with the strings, but with the instrument, it's the expansion and contraction. I'm a piano tuner, and I deal with pianos all the time. And it's the people don't realize it's not this that puts them out of tune. It's the change in humidity, the expansion and contraction of the instrument that affects things. Thank you.
When you were talking about the absence of the bass, there's a big band that I've been listening to up in this area for about 12 years now. And the bass player is habitually late. And you hear it instantly.
Oh, you're saying late, not as an absent, but late.
No, not
behind.
late. No, not late in coming in. I mean, late in showing up.
Oh, okay.
And the poor keyboard player tries to fill in the bass, and it's hollow. It's very, very hollow because you need the bass.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
a real
you know,
thing.
I was playing when I was a kid and a teenager. And I'm playing in this band, and there's a trio. You know, I put the dark glasses on and go like that. You know, but I didn't know what I was doing. And but the drummer is yelling at me, push it, drive. I say, what do you mean drive? I'm listening to you. He says, no, I'm listening to you. I had no idea. I figured, well, he's the loudest. Everybody listens to the drum. They're all listening to the bass. So it was an education for me. You know.
When you were telling your Dizzy Gillespie story, I have one of my own. I was at a New Year's Day party with him years ago.
Yeah.
And here I am, I'm a big jazz fan, and I do a jazz radio show every Monday night. But here I am in front of this legend. And what do you think he wanted to talk about? Anybody know what his passion is or was? Soap operas. Soap operas. He would come on Carson's show, and he'd want to talk about soap operas. That was his thing. Well,
you know, these guys, they travel so much. They spend so much time in the hotels. What are they going to do? Sit around and watch the shows.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, Alan, thank you so much. And now I can say a musician.
Yes, guys, thank you so much. Everybody on Zoom, thanks. I really appreciate it.